Hey, what's up everybody? Ed the Pond Professor here. We are back on our project at Cantigny. They pulled out that old pond that was here, and then I went out with Greg Woodstock, the pond guy. We went to flare fishing. We got him all taken care of. Now I'm back on this project and we started construction. So let me show you where we're at, because this is gonna be a really cool, fun project. Everything has been cleaned out. The old pond has been removed. You can see some of the old plumbing and stuff like that sitting over here, and manifolds and all that fun stuff. The soil right now is a little bit low. Starting up on the top, they had some piles of soil. What Brent is doing right now is he's filling that area in where the marsh area is going to be. That's going to be the main filtration. That is supposed to mimic that area along Lake Michigan, so northeastern corner of Illinois, marshy areas, and that's going to help to detoxify the water. Now the challenge that we have here is we're a little bit below water level right now, probably 8 to 12 inches over here, probably more than that over in this section. So we're going to be cutting and carving and then building up the outside perimeter. So a little bit of a challenge, but nothing that we can't handle. A lot of activity here this afternoon, moving soil, compacting, building up the areas to the appropriate elevations. We still have some leftover material over here from the original pond. It's some nasty, thick slop. What we're doing is pulling that out. We're gonna let it dry over on the side, over here. The reason we're doing that, we don't want to create a sinkhole. That stuff is not gonna dry if we encapsulate it. So what we're gonna do is just pull it out of there, spread it around, let it dry up a little bit. We'll fill this entire hole with a good solid material so we can continue with our work. The goal of the project is to kind of recreate that natural Illinois ecosystem, an aquatic ecosystem. Starting up in that northwest corner, the driftless zone, and then the northeast corner, the marshlands, everything converging into that Illinois River Valley. And then the area where I'm standing right now, where the pumps are gonna be located, that's gonna kind of be like a delta type of an area. So that's an area where a river system would actually meet a larger body of water. So it's gonna kind of spread out, slow down. It's gonna allow sedimentation process to occur. I love doing things the way nature has done them. So using like biomimicry techniques, engineering philosophies and techniques that are actually used in nature. Modeling ourselves after existing ecosystems makes our job a lot easier because we know it's a proven method. So it's not an ideal situation, but again, we have to adapt according to the job site. This area, because it is lower, we're digging out, we're shaping things. And so you can see there's this orange line over here. We're taking the soil out of the section where it's gonna be the deepest, then we're gonna build up to the appropriate elevation and compact that soil. Nice thing about this, we wanna find the right material. So you can see this. This is a good clay. It's still kind of damp. You can see you could actually kind of form it into clumps and things like that. That'll compact really nice for us. Versus this material. So this is the stuff that's coming out of the planting beds. This is more of an organic soil. I could compress this all I want and it just crumbles. It's really dry, a lot of organic material. So it's not really a good structural material, but it's good for the edges. And what I mean by the edges is this stuff. So what we're trying to do over here is taper everything into the existing topography, replicate that northern Illinois geology. So these little rolling hills and things like that, these are reminiscent of the lateral moraines or the terminal moraines, which was actually created where the glaciers pushed all that material up. And then over time, it slowly kind of eroded it away, and it leaves these kind of nice little ridges. They could also be looked at as a drumlin as well, which was caused by glaciation periods. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to blend all that stuff in. It's going to be nice and smooth over here. Then we're going to dig that area out here in the center, which is going to be where the wetland filter is going to be located. This is going to create that marshy zone to replicate northeast Illinois. So we have the right elevation here. It's only about 18 inches, 24 inches above the level of the pond. So this is just going to be a very gentle, swift moving stream, but not really crashing. Versus this other side over here, we're going to build that up higher, 4, 5, 6 feet above water level. So that's going to create a little bit more drama over in that section, which is reminiscent of northwestern Illinois. Just went on a little bit of a field trip, I guess. We're in the middle of the Cantigny project. Look around me in the background. We are in the flat plains of Illinois. About 10,000 years ago, there was a series of glaciers that came through, flattened everything out, literally like a bulldozer. Just these big masses of ice come through. They just crush everything up, and it leaves us with this. So just the flat plains of Illinois, which is great for growing crops, soybean, corn, all that type of stuff is great. But what I want to show you something really, really unique. So you see this little mound that pops up over here. That is what's known as a Kame. It was actually produced as the glaciers actually started to melt. So the glaciers would pick up all types of rock and debris, sand, gravels, all that stuff, crush it all up. And then as they started to melt, the melting water would actually kind of drill a hole down through the glacier. So it would take all that surface water from the surface of the glacier, drop it down into the bottom. While it was doing that, it would pick up all the sand and gravel and junk that was actually ground up inside of the glacier, and it would deposit it. So imagine this glacier is way up here. As it's melting, it's dribbling water in that's laden with stuff. So all that material is going to settle out. So the water is going to continue rolling off on the side, but all that other material is basically going to be deposited in the middle, which is known as a Kame. Now, there were other Kames in the area. Farmers would use them, actually construction companies would use them, because there's actually valuable stuff inside of there. So it's going to be gravel and aggregate type things that you could use for construction. The other thing about them is because they kind of stick up out of the landscape, it was not conducive to farming. A lot of those would be knocked down, so they would use them for construction, level things off, and then they could have nice flat ground, which is a little bit better for growing crops, which makes sense. All right, so here we are. A little bit, now I'm actually in the preserve area. Yeah, check this out. H.C. Cowles, he went on to develop a study of ecology, which is very cool. Wow. Dry gravel hill prairie is a living example of one of the rarest types of prairie left in Illinois. Really, really cool. So here's some of those plants. So I'm going to talk with some of the people over at Cantigny and see if we could actually recreate this with some of the right plant material. 1/100th of 1% of pre-settlement landscape remains intact in Illinois. So that's really, really sad. But what we can do, if you follow along with me, Pond Professor, I like to recreate natural ecosystems. So I'm always coming up with ideas to recreate stuff as well as to teach people. So what I love about this is going to allow us an opportunity to teach a newer generation about some of these really cool things that are found right here in Illinois. Again, it's kind of a blah landscape. It's kind of flat, unfortunately, but stuff like this is really, really cool and really, really unique. Cantigny Park gets lots and lots of people going through there. So if we could teach them a little bit about this incredible state, then we've done our job. Here is a pile of gravel at my house, which actually has a very similar shape to that Kame. Actually, it's a little bit pointier right now, but when it was originally formed, probably had more of a cone shape, and then over time it's going to become a little bit more flattened. So when you get precipitation and rain and stuff like that on a pile of gravel, whatever it happens to be, it's going to want to flatten this out. Big pile of gravel right there that I still have to move. So this is going to create the pathway and roadway that is back over by my hobbit house. All right, so I decided to do a little bit of a test here. Got an old creamer bottle, so I'm gonna hopefully demonstrate how a Kame is actually formed. So I'm gonna take some of this crushed stone, and again, an actual Kame would not be crushed because of the glacier. It's actually gonna have rounded, smooth river stone, but it has a mixture of gravel, and then over here you could see it's got lots of sand and fine particles inside of it, which would actually be found inside of glaciers and things like that normally. So let's take a mixture of that gravel, put it inside of here, and then I'm going to fill it up with water to mimic the meltwater coming from the glacier. And I'm going to pour it on the ground, and we will watch exactly what happens. We'll go about halfway, but you could actually see the different layers and all that stuff in there. So let's go fill this up with water. That is my mixture. So that has the big gravel, the sand, all that junk that I pulled off the bottom. And you will actually see how one of these things is formed in a miniature scale. Pretty fascinating, right? Actually, I think Donkey thinks so. But look at that. It's a perfect little spire, little mound. And this is exactly what you would think would happen. But this is what happens on a large scale when we're talking about geology. But that is that telltale sign that would be dotting the Illinois landscape. since I mentioned the Hobbit House project, I have to show you it because it does look really good. Plants are coming in, doing projects all over the place, traveling, everything in between. You know, I got it looking decent right now. I will focus more on the inside of that once the weather starts to turn, but check out water quality, just perfect, looks great, I love it. Got a few aquatic plants in here I got to plant. I actually added in cool pitcher plant over here. So anyway, that pile of gravel is going to go through this area. So I'm going to dig this out, do all gravel in here to allow for better traction, keep everything a little bit cleaner, and it will look a lot nicer. While I'm over here, I might as well show you animals. Here comes Jester to say hi. We got some of the goats. I was kicking back and relaxing. Main pond is excavated. Let's take a walk real quick. We have the intake bay way at the far end. Remember, this is going to be the pre-filter. So intake bay is a place where debris is going to accumulate. We tried to position it all the way in the back over here because it's kind of out of the way from the main viewing area. So we're going to have some big flat stones on this edge. We have a big bridge crossing. You have the pavilion, walkways going across. So the main viewing is actually more in that center location. So this way, any debris that comes in here, no one's really going to see. So this is a place just from a maintenance perspective. This is going to capture leaf debris and it's going to house our pumps, which are going to then recirculate the water. So we have a nice little narrow channel flowing into it, so that's going to create a nice swift moving water coming in. Then we have the main pond itself, and again, this section here is supposed to mimic the Illinois River, which is very wide, just kind of meanders, relatively deep. It's going to have some marsh plantings along the perimeter. It's going to have some rocky edges, which are similar to some of the places found around the Ottawa area, Starved Rock. I'd love to find some big logs and things that we could also add into this design. Right where Brent is excavating right now, that narrow little section right there, there's going to be a bridge located at that location. That's going to connect people from the pavilion area to go all the way down these walkways and things. The water on either side of that bridge is going to be relatively shallow, probably 10 to 12 inches deep, so that's nice and safe. So if anybody were to step off of the bridge, they'd only go into a shallow section of water. This area up above, that's going to be the confluence of the two stream systems. So it's a little bit more of a funky shape, mimicking nature. So that's kind of what you're going to find where you have two river systems coming in. You might have a big bedrock area in between that the water couldn't erode away. So that's why there's like a big peninsula or something like that coming out from there. This is going to be the fast moving stream, and then we have the shallow moving stream on the other side. This area is going to be heavy with aquatic vegetation as well. We also started setting out some of those outside perimeters. I went and tagged rocks this morning with the staff here. So they're starting to bring in some of the stone. You can see a little pile over here. And we're going to need at least a semi-load of stone sitting here before we start setting stone, because we're going to start setting them very quickly. Just had a realization, it just hit me. I don't know why it took me so long. If we go back 27 years ago, that's when I started at Aquascape. It was actually about half a mile as the crow flies from this location. I used to drive by this place all the time on my way into work when I grew up in the south side. Man, a tiny little house that Greg was renting, that's where construction's actually started. And that garage is actually the home where we used to custom fabricate skimmer systems and biofalls. We were making garbage cans and we'd get cattle troughs, and now here we are at this beautiful park that I've been driving by for many, many years doing some incredible work. So it's kind of fun to see the progress and the journey of all that stuff that has happened over the many years. All right, I hope you enjoy this project. I'm looking forward to getting a liner inside of this thing, getting more rock here so we can start making some great progress. All right, we'll see you soon.